How's everybody doing? I am your last meeting before you can go home. So hey everybody, I'm John Vichinsky. I'm from DTE. Thanks for attending the session this afternoon. Here to talk about analytics using improved customer communication. So big words, could be anything across the board for DTE, but this is very much specific to a lot of the customer experience related to outages. So we'll kind of get to some of the details on what I mean by that. Just a little bit about, like I said, we're going to talk about power outages. We're going to talk about a project that we've been leading over the last couple of years called EFC, Error-Free Communications. And then how we utilize analytics for outage management. Not just from analytics from a couple perspectives. One, data quality and understanding what our experiences with our customers and the types of information that is related to that. And then just wanted a little bit of acknowledging our partners and the tools and systems and people we had to use to make sure this project was successful. A little bit about DTE. You guys all know we're from Detroit. We have two sides, electric and gas, 2.3 million electric customers, 1.3 million gas customers, mostly across southeast Michigan. Our gas side is across the entire state. But anyways, and then sprinkle here or there. And then just from an outage perspective, so we talk a lot about this initiative, or what I'm talking about today is specifically around outages. So we want to give you a little bit of insight on the type of outages problems that customers have across the industry, not just DT, but little do you know, you guys all know 62% of our problems are related to weather, but not just the weather. It's also related to trees, damaged winds and tree trimming. So a lot of the things kind of fall together. Trees break, lose your power. So a lot of the things that we see from our side day to day is during storms, and one of the important things that we do at DTE is do a lot of tree trimming. So I'm on the IT side. I don't work in the field. So be nice to me a little bit. I'm just a good-looking IT guy, but But again, I will say that I know DT has tripled their investments in tree trimming to help do a lot of the preventive maintenance, so we don't have as many outages. But we can only go certain far. Over the last couple of years, we have seen more major storms more frequently and more often than we have in our entire history of our company. So, for us, we have to do something differently. So, as part of that, starting in 2021. We want to put a new initiative in place to help improve the customer experience. What we observed during that time was, we saw the most outages in 2021, the largest, right? And our systems, were on older technology, right? So we said, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to upgrade our new systems, and not just upgrade our systems, and also improve the way we're communicating to customers. So, we designed our customer-facing systems to improve the communications. A lot of enhancements within our internal systems, right? Our back-end systems, you hear some words like I'll say AMI meters. That's the meters that says, hey, you're out of power and how much electrical usage you have, and trying to utilize some of that information. And deployment of key systems. We moved over from on-prem to Azure platform, and you'll hear about that today. I'll call this, word WSMO a lot, and you'll hear that, and it's, the back-end is on the Azure platform. And then also internal systems to scale up, right? So again, be able to handle these large storms, at the peak period when customers need us most, and so we can respond back to them proactively and timely. And like I said, in the last piece, which we'll talk about a lot of the analytics side, is understanding. Like be able to monitor, triage, and measure and see where we're at, how many customers are out of power, or what is going on, or do we have any issues, are there any lagging or leading indicators? So, developing, tools and process in place on top of the customer's experience to understand what happened and where they're at with that in their outage life cycle. I haven't done a presentation in 15 years, so, bear with me here as I flip through my pages and my little notes. So this is our EFC, we call it the Error-Free Communications Architecture. You'll see here, this is kind of a high-level diagram. In the center here, you'll see the Outage Tracker WSMO, otherwise known as WSMO. You'll hear me for that. That is sitting on an Azure platform. And then that's our central system that we tracked. What we do is this is a central system to track all outages for a customer perspective. So our backend system is our outage management system. So as outages occur, that's where we do our jobs. The crews do their jobs. It says, hey, we have these outages. They assign the crews to restore those. So our job is to take that information, put it into Wismo, and disseminate that information, and then communicate out to the customer channels, whether it's mobile app, IVR, outage map, web, notifications. Our CRM system, we have an SAP CRM system, that's what our CRs use. And then the data lake, right? Again, a key piece, for analytics and storing that in there for all our data dashboards and reporting. Again, my focus will be talking about the Wismo component of that because that is our single source of truth for all outage information from a customer perspective, whether the outage has been reported, estimates, how many outages, what happened, restorations, what did it look like on the outage map, to be able to triage it. So we're going to talk, the rest of the pieces about that area specifically. One of the things we first did when we first came out with this project says, hey, we got to do, the zero-free communications, right? And Wismo is a back-end infrastructure. It's all integration, right? So as you guys know, anything that's back-end, just pure interfaces, there's really in the past, it's a lot of manual testing, right? Test one thing here on this end, did it come out on this end? And we want to do something different and smarter. We got to have something that's quicker, easier, more repeatable, right? And a higher quality. So we decided as part of the initiative and talking to leaders, like what do? We could have picked a lot of things like JMeter and things of that nature, but decided to use UiPath that was fit for purpose, right? It was test automation. And part of that is, to make sure we can spin something up quickly, easily, and manage that. So we went from basically 0 to 300 test cases in 1 month. I mean, just with a few people. Opposed to dozens of testers, taking weeks to go through there, and those test cases is a push of the button. So, our ability to scale up and see what's going on and pass, fail, and be able to turn that around at a high quality perspective was great. Not just in addition to the tool. I mean, we had a lot of good, I call Nick, wherever Nick's at, he's here. He's standing in the back, I call him the secret sauce, really sharp guy that understands the tools and how these systems work. And then the 600 test case scenarios. So along with it, and we can mature that, right? So we've leveraged this information time and time again, over and over, as a repeatable process. And one of the other things we did is it wasn't just good enough to say, hey, we can repeat these test cases, but able to run a load test saying, hey, if we had 1 million outages or 1 million transactions, and not just from a customer reporting, but if you go back to that old scale, this old system, there's a lot of interfaces coming in and out, right? Outage status, we got people, pounding on their keyboard saying, hey, what is the latest status? Checking the map, going, where am I at? The back-end system sending us job updates and estimate updates and making sure that volume our platform can support all that. So, and we leveraged, like I said, UiPath for the test automation to scale that up, just to make sure the system would sustain that type of volume. Not in addition to that, so, and moving us from agile to more of a DevOps model. So, and we truly are doing that. So we are repeating that process and doing, sprints and 2 weeks iterations. And part of our development and rolling out is regression testing all our test cases and incrementally improving those as we find new scenarios that may have failed. We don't have many, which is great. I think our team, I give more credit to the team than anything else, to identify and understand how that information works together and make sure we have test coverage for that. And again, and what's important about that is an improved customer experience, right? So making sure that, hey, when you're going to check your notification matches what happens on the map when you look at it, and the data is consistent. You don't have this, hey, why does this show one thing here and this says another thing here, to make sure that those messages are across the board and as well. So again, that's kind of the overall system. So there's 2 aspects of this data quality and analytics, right? So I want to take one side as as we transition to the test automation, which has been great, a great success tool. I'm so happy that we decided to do that as part of our overall process, and from a quality management perspective, we're able to turn the work around as fast as we can be as a result of that. And then on the analytics side, right, we know our understanding our outage and triaging, and then our improved customer experience. And what I mean by that is understanding the scope and scale of outage events. Whether, we have this concept, you'll hear me talk about blue sky versus storm, right? Blue sky is nice, pretty day, not many outages, and we have these crazy storms that we had in February was like our second largest one ever in our history, right? Where we call it a major storm, and it's all hands on deck, and how do we manage, understand the scope and what's going on? So, looking at that, the different dimensions of that information. And then our customer experience is, what do we do to the customers? How do we message the customers? Be able to see and go back and look, going, if there is a bad experience, be able to triage that, going, okay, this is what happened to the customer. We sent them, they reported their outage. We sent them a notification. Or we close it out, but then they open up another one again. It's like, oh no, we did, customers, we call it a trouble behind trouble. There's something else going on with that customer, but we treat those guys differently. But at least we can see that information from a single source. Not that we didn't before, right? But it's just taking it to the next level of that data and information. Not just looking at it from a job perspective, but looking at an individual customer and scale that up in a real-time perspective. So that's one of the great things too that we kind of realized quickly as we kind of started this project was not just to test automation. It's like, oh, we got to build up analytics better to figure out what's going on because we have so much data now that's at our fingertips. We need to develop, Power BI tools, and we use Outage and all these other pieces to understand that data because we have it. So a lot of the experience that way. Did we kind of go in knowing that we had to do that? No, but we quickly understood the need and the opportunity to be able to do that, to see that information. So again, I'm kind of going into some of the key analytics and requirements. So some of the key requirements we kind of took a look at on our side is, asking the common questions. How many outages we have? Did the outage go through? Did we get estimates for a customer? How many outages do they have? What is the time series in terms of information? What is the current job status? So one of the things I talk about this word of job is, the job to complete somebody's restoration. You can have 15 people on the job, you can have thousands of people, and all those customers are in, to be able to see that association. In the life cycle, what I mean is by, customer reported out is 1, 2, 5 times. They may have gotten 5 estimate updates. Why do they get 5 estimate updates? Our goal is to only have 1. So how do we, what do we do wrong and how do we make it better? I'm exaggerating, by the way. That doesn't really happen a lot, so I just want to say that. I got to be careful. And then what are some of the exceptions, outliers, right? What are some of our error handling? So we know that we're not perfect, but be able to identify and quantify it. Something we didn't really leverage that today by utilizing these, data analytics tool, Power BI, and we use Outage. We can see what the scope and how to remediate those. So, it's an ongoing evolution process to do those pieces, and we'll kind of go into some exceptions and what we kind of do to help with that. And then what are some of the data quality issues? Some of the things that we have is just, bad addresses or missing addresses. Inactive meters, customers are trying to report on a house that has no active meter because they selected the wrong address because they live at, Outer Drive versus West Outer Drive. Outer Drive is one of our favorites. I have Ollie here that we always take a look at because Outer Drive snakes through and people just pick the first Outer Drive opposed to their house. And it has an impact overall. And then again, like I said, we talked about the WSMO. Those are some of our dashboards we have. One thing we call the WSMO orders, how many orders or how many outages we have, the jobs that are associated with those outages, our exceptions dashboards, and then we do a comparison to make sure we're in sync with our back-end system. So want to make sure we're not dropping messages or we're out of sync with how we're communicating to customers. Things like, storm mode tracking, if we're in blue sky or storm, because we do messaging differently, so we want to track that and what we've done, date and time, so we have to take a look back and see what we sent to that customer. And then we have this other concept called orphan orders. These are outages that kind of get stuck in the process, and usually they're typically data issues that causes some of the events, so be able to identify those and get those resolved in a different process. So we trap those as well. So it's kind of we call them our orphans, or leftover children that we have to kind of manually take care of and address. This is one of our outage stats dashboards. So, when I started this whole project, right, not very heavily into data analytics. I understood reporting needs is essential to success and be able to measure it. So, be able to see this information in a single point of view and actually have these dashboards using Power BI or other systems has been great. And from a visual perspective, so, the team we have on here is like, hey, I can do this and that, and I can plop, the outages on the, Michigan map and make it look pretty and see the time dimensions. So, some of the things we've been able to do just from a visual perspective and data perspective, we didn't have before because we didn't really leverage, Power BI and some of the other things that were out there to take a look at this data. So it's been, personally, I think it's kind of cool, but maybe you guys haven't. Yeah.
Where do you source most of your stuff when you take your data sets in Power BI? Where do you get it from? Like the data lake?
The data lake. Yeah, if you go back, we store everything in our data lake. Mm-hmm. Yep. So here's like real-time open outage status. So anytime we come and look here and take a look, we can see the life cycle that of their outages. What the dimensions are, how long they've been open, how long they've been restored, and we can actually search by a person's house, right? And saying, hey, what happened with this? Taking a look at the data to be able to triage it and see its overall, or just the accumulation, right? Be able to slice it, going, hey, we had 1,000 outages, today, and this crazy storm went through this area, and we jumped to 15,000 in an hour, and we could be able to slice that information out. How did we do? Looks like we did pretty well. And then again, that's like the clusters of various outages. So kind of taking a look at that little map, it's just a little snapshot. You can kind of see there's 44 open outages, and the map kind of sprinkled them all across. And again, this is simulating. This is our test environment. But anyways, kind of simulate that information. And then the bottom right side, you can kind of see these multiple customer called 11 times. But because it's test environment, we can kind of say, hey, is there a problem area with our outages with certain customers? So we're able to see those and track those and figure out, is it a data issue? Is something else going on? Is it us? And try to take a look at some of those pieces and slice that out. Storm dashboard. So I told you, we have this concept called blue sky and storm. Storm. So when storm happens, it is a very much all hands on deck type of situation. Where everywhere's their storm hats, and whether you're in the field restoring stuff or in your IT, making sure the systems are scaled up to support it, and we have people watching and making sure that things are being addressed. So one things we had done is taking a look at this data, this information, using the WSMO as a backend and the data lake, and putting a storm type of view on it. So this is a storm we had in August last year. It was, again, one of the craziest, largest storms we had. It's a big theme the last few years. I don't know why, but it has been. It's been kind of shocking. That's why we've had to scale up. But you can kind of see here is like where we're at in the storm. So we have this concept of some storm phases where we're at. So, the ramp-up period, right? So when the storm first comes through, is as, we go from, 1,000 outages to 371,000 outages, right, in just a matter of hours. But we're able to see that scale and how did our systems have, and then how are we doing as we kind of go along our progress. Do we have estimates? Are we restoring people? What does that timeline look like as we restore people? Or is the numbers trending down? Why isn't it? Is there a spike coming back up? Are we doing something wrong? So be able to see that insight, and that's kind of what we utilize the storm dashboard for. It's real time in the moment, and it's something we've always done, but this is taking that data from a different type of view, and it's from a premise view opposed to looking at those jobs. It's just the way we look at the data is differently, and it's I guess more detailed, to say more or less. And then we can, like I said, time series. What do we look at from previous storm events? We were able to tie it back, and we kind of did this little snapshot of 2022 of in the bottom right corner, going, here's all these what we call little storms, and we had that big August storm. It doesn't even scale. It was crazy times, but we had the information, right, and we can see what's going on and improve on that, and that's just something that it was part of our goals, right? Airfield communications, be able to measure those pieces.
Other questions for you? So how, again, it's still off the data lake, right?
Yeah. Yep, everything's off the data lake.
Are you going to feed the events into the data lake, or is it like just batches over the course of the
No, it's real-time events. So as the system comes through and updates events, whether a customer reports an outage or we get an estimate update from the back end, We update the data lake. It's real-time is real-time events. We have activities going on. We track everything that happens. Not everything we do, systems updates we give from the back-end systems results in a communication to the customer. It's just, hey, we, assign the crew. We don't, do crew updates, or we change it from one job to another job. But all that stuff is stored in there. We actually have everything. Go back and look at it. Previous new changes. We went from outage to a flicker, right? To all the types of information. Thanks for asking questions, by the way. See, standing up, you keep talking, I get nervous. Outage admin dashboard. So this is the second piece we talked about. One was around the analytics and taking a look at these dashboards. The other piece we decided to put in too is we have all this great information that's sitting in WSMO and the data lake, and we need to provide this information not just for IT but for our business partners, right? For self-service to figure out what happened, right? So there's many people that want this information, so we'll be able to triage and see what that experience is. So what we decided to do was develop a front end call. We call it the Outage Admin Dashboard UI. And on here, you'll see is what mode are we in? If we're in blue sky or storm, because as I mentioned before, we measure customers differently and be able to switch that with that. We see how many outages are, a real quick glance, right? It's just a summary of where we're at with the outage systems. And then the other pieces in here at the top, kind of see, I call it the counts, but it's really how many outages we have open and how many jobs we have. So just some additional information so we can kind of take a look at from a seamless summary without having to go to the data lake. It's actually open, active information. The next two slides is about be able to triage. So if you're out of power calling in saying, hey, I called you guys 5 times, or, what's going on, or hey, we saw this customer that, never got a power status restoration. So we'll go back in and look and see, hey, yep, we got an outage here. We sent a customer a notification. We see they called in, right, check status, and we've updated the estimate 3 times. But you can actually see that history, not just for that current outage event, but all of them. So again, not having to, if everybody's in IT, the business is always asking questions, but the business is able to leverage this. And this is one of those data quality, improving the customer experience, not just external customers, but our business partners too. And then, managing our storms and our messages and what we say and do to the customer. So a single point of view, right? So if you look at my other slides, we talked about the IVR, the web, mobile, and the map. All the messages that go to all those channels, it's managed in a single place, so they're consistent with across the board in a timely fashion. So if we wanted to change a message that, we change it in one place and it gets propagated down. So identifying data quality and remediation. So this slide here, our left-hand side here is our exceptions dashboard. A lot of funny codes, bad reads, 95%, R calls, but it's our internal language. But basically is, these are things we identified over time as we're testing or as we're in production that says, hey, we want to identify what these outages, what these things are so we can fix them, right, for the next time, for it doesn't happen again. So both as an identification and also to ensure from a quality perspective going forward that we don't have these problems. And a lot of them are usually source data issues like incorrect data, that address problem that I tell you about that, outer drive gives us a headache. Sometimes, or incorrect lat long. So we'll get to that in a minute. One of the things that we also worked on was the outage map and making sure the data quality on the map is actually accurate. And I'll show you some of the daggers and spears and arrows that stabbed me over time until we got that down. And then data issues, right? Outage status updates. Maybe the interface went down, or why are we not getting outage status updates? What's taking so long? So we don't see that tracking. Mismatches or just what we call trouble behind trouble, where a customer says, hey, we thought you restored power. They call back in and says, I'm still out of power. So we're able to track those and saying, hey, what's going on with this? And then system equipment, right? Faulty meters, it happens, or we're not getting a good connection with the meters. It's over, it's all outside of the thresholds. Or system outages. Maybe one of the other interfaces went down between the systems. To be able to see that. And scalability, right? So we talked a lot about scaling up, can the system handle the volumes, right? So as we all in IT know, when we have a lot of stuff flooding the system, sometimes things slow down, and that scalability. So we're able to monitor those things and saying, hey, what's going on? kind of moving on to the outage map. So we talked about that data quality issue. So this is, I joked, so we're working on this new outage map. And again, putting it in. So when we were going to our testing, the new map we used, the old one, the data is different. It's at a much granular level. We're at a customer house level, and the old map used to be at a higher level, but that's besides the point. But when we're trying to take a look at this data, we're like, oh my, we hooked it up to the first map. We started putting this information on. I'm like, what are all these what is these, like a needle in my eye? I'm like getting stabbed. I'm like, I can't stand this every day. So I was talking to Kristen and Ali. I'm like, guys, this is crazy. We can't show a customer a polygon that's, across 3 counties and 5 cities, right? So what do? We got 2 million records. How do I identify and fix all this, right? What they should be looking like, these nice little pretty pictures on the left-hand side, which are great, right? This is the neighborhood, the houses, yep, kind of makes sense. And what really it is on the right-hand side is that needle, that far end, it says this house, lat long, or the equipment hierarchy doesn't fit. So it extends this whole piece. So we needed to have a process in place to figure that out. So, of course, 1-800-SCOT, Ali, and they're like, hey, I think we can do something, right? So they went back, and about a week later, it says, I think there's a couple things we can do to fix this. And what they did was, use Alteryx. I don't know if you guys know, I learned this alter YX. YX is XY positions for lat longs, FYI. Just thought that was kind of cool. Learned that too this year. To be able to identify what those processes are. So they were able to load all 2.4 million, I would say Ali here. This is Ali, guys. So thank you, Ali. Was able to load all his meters into Alteryx and spin it up and says, here's all the lat longs that we have, and here's what Google says, and be able to see what the differences were, right? So our example on the side is, here's this outage that was in Ann Arbor. We had 1 meter because back in the day they fixed a meter and it got signed way out in Bad Axe. So we had an outage that was 97 miles away. So that, that needle I was showing you, that's what would happen. So we were able to identify those outliers. And the report you really can't see is this dashboard, and it says outlier distance. When we first got that, we had outages with lat longs that was in Antarctica and on a lake, and Hamburg, Germany, opposed to Hamburg, Michigan. But we were able to fix all those things quickly and efficiently. So took all those discrepancies and said, hey, we automated it. We fed it through Google to make sure, because the backend map was tied to Google, and updated all those. So instead of being miles away, we're within thousands of feet of a person's house. So high quality, updated hundreds of thousands of records to be reflective of that. And then the other piece too was the second part was, you hear this word transformer, right? Everybody's hooked up to a transformer. Your house is in your area. So it's important how we kind of map the outage map with that as well. So we want to make sure that those meters were within that transformer. So these outliers was the other aspect, so we can actually fix that information. So, proactively, so we went live before the map, we were able to identify, by utilizing these tools in this dashboard, not just one time, we do this ongoing, right, as part of our process to make sure as we update our, we call it delivery nodes and to the map to present that information that's accurate. Huge success. We would not have been able to do it because I went from getting stabbed with needles in my eyes to tears of joy. I mean, this was a big joke in our team, but, can you imagine trying to figure out 2 million records and how you're going to update that manually and, through a couple quick tools, Alteryx, kind of spin it all through, not just data-wise, but also it gave a visual view of what those outliers were. I'm a couple slides behind. Hold on a second. And again, like I said, the combination of a lot of these tools between, Power BI, Alteryx, right, the automation tools, right, moving us from our on-prem system to a new Azure platform and using the data lake to see this information really had brought us from a customer perspective or from commission to the next level, and be able to scale up and support our needs. Like I said, as you guys know, good or bad, these crazy storms are happening more often, right? We just had another one in February, which is our second or third largest in 50 years or something like that. But those words come more and more often. We got to be prepared to support that. And some of these back-end systems we did really move towards that, right? And be able to see that, had that insight to a customer of what happened from a single point of view. It's been a phenomenal tool. So again, like I said, kind of recap, when we started as a venture, I have Siva back here. We decided to bring Wit on board and some of the resources. They're really strong in automation analytics tools. Like I said, use Alteryx. I couldn't figure out the map issues. If I didn't have the Alteryx, didn't even know what that meant until, these guys told me that, hey, we can spin this up and take that visualization. UiPath, that's kind of where we started. I just wanted to kind of do something different from a development perspective and get test automation as part of the process, move to DevOps and the Power BI, right? So having that data in there and have a single point of view and be able to measure, manage, and quantify what is going on with the customer experience. So it's been a fun project. I mean, these are some of the simple slides, but I had that type of insight. I've been working at DTE for a couple of years, I should say a lot of years, and just taking that information to the next level it's been quite an experience and really enjoyable, and I would say a key to customer success for us kind of moving forward. This is just one small piece of our error-free communications and outage management system. We've been upgrading a lot of our systems, and I'm just focused on one slice of what we have done. But anyways, any questions? Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit more to how Alteryx fits in your footprint? I mean, you mentioned the kind of the ad hoc map analysis. It helps solve that data quality.
Yeah, I would say that would be the biggest piece we utilize for it is from that perspective for the data quality is really looking at it from a lat long geospatial type of stuff.
You guys played with Microsoft Purview at all for kind of cataloging?
No, we haven't done any of that type of stuff. Like I said, I know that stuff is out there, but our team has been kind of, there's a lot of reporting tools. But
Stuff done, man. Don't let any stop you.
yeah. No, it's quick, dirty, quick and fast. Yep.
Can you clarify how your data is collected? Do you need any customer feedback or phone calls or those web submissions, or is all the data collected at the meter level? Or is it an aggregate of all those four sources you showed in the slide early on?
Well, the meter stuff is in our back-end OMS system, the outage management system, so they do collect all the information from a meter. Hey, side, and this is not my expertise, by the way, but that type of stuff. But from a customer side, as they report outages or check status, we do collect that stuff within our system or have web metrics.
But you already would know that I have an outage by the time
Oh, from an AMI perspective, yeah, the AMI meters are typically, so I think it's 64, 30%. Yeah, something like that, about 30%. Yeah, during a big storm.
So you need more data getting collected about the outage.
Yep. Yep.
To make this
I didn't want to. Yeah, I'm like, I can't remember the quite number. So.
you're blending that somewhere.
Yep. Anybody else? Yeah.
So during outage, how do you prioritize the customers? Like, hey, these group of customers.
Well, I would say there's a whole team that kind of goes behind it. I would say high level is, they as a group, they kind of take a look at those every day, but they call it plan a day, and I think typically it's usually by large outages, but,
So it's a manual process.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, obviously some are obvious, bigger the outage, faster they go. Substation down, they kind of know and work on those big pieces first, right? So.
I was wondering if we have any machine learning models which can prioritize the customers.
They are looking at some of that stuff. I've been not involved in that side of the business to take a look at. I'm more on the customer side of that, opposed to looking at the analytics and metering and using some AI, predicting the outages and saying, this is what I think is really out. I know they are working on some of that. But I appreciate the attendance here. This is great. I was nervous. You guys were. But again, like I said, thanks for attending. Like I said, it's been a great experience, and appreciate your time. Oh.